Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, a success story with Veryfi and how they are disrupting the category with Envestnet Yodlee, brought to you by Envestnet Yodlee. In an effort to allow everyone a chance to log into today's program, we will be starting this web seminar in about 2 minutes. We thank you for your patience. Hello and welcome to today's webinar, the customer success story with Veryfi, brought to you by Envestnet Yodlee. My name is Ron Barish and I will be your moderator for today. Before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items to attend to. First, the webcast console you're looking at can be customized to enhance your experience during this event. If you have any questions during the webcast, feel free to click on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and submit your questions. We will try and answer as many of these questions as possible. Also, we will be recording today's webinar, and an on-demand version of this event will be available to all attendees in the next few days. Finally, if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, please visit the webcast help guide by clicking on the help button below the presentation window. It has a question mark icon and does cover many common technical issues. Now, without further delay, I'd like to introduce our presenters for today's seminar. Jeff Cain, Director of the Envestnet Yodlee Incubator, and Ernest, co-founder of Veryfi. Let's kick this off. Jeff, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Ernest, for being here. We've also got Ernest co-founder Dmitry in the room to chime in with any technical questions, and thank you all for joining us on this webinar. First question, Ernest, is tell us a little bit about Veryfi and your industry and what you provide to your customers.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having us, Jeff. So a bit about Veryfi. So Veryfi is software to automate construction bookkeeping, so that's time and material, and basically enable job site intelligence. And so the Veryfi software helps businesses of all sizes to get access to smart mobile tools to eliminate around 90% of time wasted doing data entry, chasing records, improving job costing, and basically empowering their financial prosperity. As you heard Jeff, Jeff mentioned, the company's founded by myself, Ernest, and Dmitry. So we're both software engineers. We previously helped take Coupons Inc., which is now called Quotient Technologies, from startup to IPO. So we've been through that before. It's an interesting journey, and now we're doing this with Veryfi. And so just to sort of expand a bit more about Veryfi products, so we've got 3 products which we sell today. The first one is the Money app. So the Money app extracts data from receipts, bills, invoices, and checks in real time. Then it categorizes the transaction before executing a number of bookkeeping workflows. So the second app that we have is Timesheets app. It handles timesheet and employee scheduling. Now this app also has geofencing, and it's what we see as the world's first flaw detection capabilities to basically automatically clock in and clock out field workers on projects. Now, for anyone that uses a Sonnen ultra-rugged Android phone, then these 2 products have got special integration with the extra hardware buttons, and also they take advantage of all the extra technology that's built into these great Sonim phones. Now, the third product that we sell is an enterprise-grade API with custom camera. So that's for any enterprise company wanting to embed our real-time technology into their core products. And all it takes is about 3 lines of code. So we already have the second largest real estate company as a customer, and also a handful of other institutions which are integrating and have integrated our product. So if anyone wants to learn more about the product that we have, check out Veryfi.com.
Awesome. I mean, I can definitely see the value of automating a lot of those bookkeeping functions and timesheets. Step back a little bit and give us the origin story. How did you decide to solve this problem versus any other?
Okay, cool. No, that's a great question. So I come from a family where everyone is either an accountant or works in construction. And so I'm the only software engineer in the family. So for a very, very long time, I heard from my family about the lack of great bookkeeping software. So, software that I've heard about was, software that kept them chained to a desktop, software that used offshore labor to sort of create that Wizard of Oz experience with, man behind the curtain doing all the data extraction. And every time I heard that, I was like, oh no, there's got to be something better. Unfortunately, there wasn't. And so when I looked at all of these different approaches, the problem with this old school the software, there's a number of problems. And one of the first ones was that bookkeeping software is built for the bookkeeper. It runs on a desktop natively or in the browser. It's operated by a trained bookkeeper. And the bookkeeper not only does a lot of the financial paperwork using that software, but also chases everyone to connect the dots around their financial transactions. So that's problem number one. Number two is data privacy, and that is probably the biggest problem. The IRS wants you to keep bookkeeping data for a minimum of about 7 years, so you need a place you can trust. When you outsource bookkeeping or use old software, they typically ship business and employee personal data offshore for data extraction. Now, that's not something a modern business should be doing to save a penny or two in bookkeeping. And just to give you an example, Jeff, the ITRC reported that commercial businesses accounted for more than 50% of data breach targets. So that's more than 157 million compromised records in 2017 alone. That's crazy. Now, for any CPAs listening to this webinar, also check out Revenue Code 7216. Quote, it's a criminal provision enacted by the U.S. Congress in 1971 that prohibits preparers of tax returns from knowingly or recklessly disclosing or using tax return information. That's huge. And the third problem is business intelligence. Now, as Chamat, who's an investor at Social Capital, famously said, quote, most of the information to make better decisions sit inside a company. That's really important. So, yet, we find so many businesses doing their bookkeeping monthly like it's a chore, right? Treat your bookkeeping data like it's gold. That's what you should be doing. It's the pulse of your business. Use it, look at it daily, make better business decisions. Now, coming back to the story, when I arrived in Silicon Valley in about 2009, I met Dmitry Birulia, whose mom is also a bookkeeper, and he shared many of the pains that I did in my life growing up. So Dmitry and I would later, partner and start Veryfi. And so here we are. It was a perfect marriage, as I say, regarding startup co-founders.
Got it. So as the software nerd of your family, you were almost fated to build bookkeeping software.
Yeah, exactly.
When you decided let's attack this problem, what are the various solutions you looked at? Why this particular architecture and this approach with Veryfi?
That's a great question, Jeff. So the answer to that question starts at Pacifica. So Pacifica is in SF. It's a few miles outside of SF. SF downtown. So that's where Dmitry and I surf. It's a beautiful location, surrounded by mountains. You've got the SF fog rolling in. Pretty decent surf, actually. It's very surreal. So that's where Dmitry and I would often brainstorm ideas and explore different ways software can solve common business problems. Now, we didn't do it on the beach. We did it on the surf while waiting for the waves to come. So it was a really good time. And so we knew that what we wanted to build just didn't exist. Yes, there are different types of software solutions, but there is nothing that was powered by machines end to end, nothing that focused on data privacy, and nothing that really bubbled up business intelligence, which is what I mentioned earlier, for smarter business decision making, while at the same time allowing those businesses to meet the statutory tax obligations. So that's all of that data that you need to provide to the IRS when you run a company. So this was a big challenge for us. We would ask ourselves questions like, what would software built for bookkeepers look like if we decentralized bookkeeping? Right? We wanted to avoid the runaround required to validate transactions, and we wanted to empower the employees with the right tools. So what we came to conclude is that it had to be mobile first and team focused. Then we asked ourselves, well, what does a data privacy first company look like? First of all, you cannot outsource any parts of the back office. The back office must be powered by machines. We need to solve a hard problem that hasn't been done before. So the software needs to consume unstructured information, so things like receipts, bills, invoices, which don't really have any form of structure, and turn it into structured data without the use of templates in real time. And then we asked ourselves, well, modern businesses will rely on data, a lot of data, to make better and faster business decisions. So we knew that data is the key. Most of us, I think, already know this. And so key information needs to be bubbled up instantly, not every month when the bookkeeper arrives. It's data that cannot be lost and should be available for historical purposes, like it's used in construction, job costing. So we got to work and built basically our first RESTful API with real-time data extraction capabilities and OCR. For anyone that doesn't know what OCR stands for, it means optical character recognition, the idea of turning something that's, say, a picture into text. And on the front end, we basically put our mobile interface, so mobile first. And we watched what happened after launch.
Awesome. When you applied to the Yodlee incubator about a year and a half ago, one of the reasons we selected Veryfi from among the hundreds of applications we got was that ability to kind of automatically take a receipt and turn it into actual usable data. So tell us a little more about that technology and how it works and why it's important for your customers.
Sure. Yeah. No, good question, Jeff. So OCR in itself is a solved problem. But what isn't is the intelligence around data extraction. So OCR plays about 10% of our back-end IP technology. So let me give you an example. So you can push a receipt, a bill, or invoice into OCR, and it will return maybe an average result of unstructured text. That's unstructured text. So how do you know what is total, what's the tax, or taxes if you're in Canada, vendor, and so forth, right? You don't. So OCR will not be that solution that's going to be end-of-all solution for you, right? You need to build something more contextual, something more intelligent around it. And that's what we did. But as soon as you start doing this, you run into so many different types of issues. It's mind-boggling, actually. Now, they're all solvable through painful software iterations. And I say painful because it requires many, many iterations. You need to be learning from all of that experience. Now, let's take pre-processing of a document. So we're not even talking about OCR here. Let's just say you want to use your phone to capture a picture of a receipt. Now, you cannot just push a photo against OCR because OCR will return below average results. So you have to think this through and either auto-crop the receipt on the mobile device or manually crop it. Now, since we're in the business of automating bookkeeping, manual crop is sort of not the right solution here. so automatic cropping it is. So you need to be able to detect the receipt, even if you hold it in your hand. Now, phone cameras have a very small lens, which means more noise indoors, even during the day when you try to take a picture. All right? So what that means is that you need to think about the ambience and be able to automatically turn the light on so the camera software does not increase the ISO. The ISO is the sensitivity on a chip, because when sensitivity goes up, you start getting little granular interferences, right? Because it's picking up more noise. So you've got to sort of balance that out. Now, there's a host of other things that you also need to consider, like if you're taking a picture in your hand, or when a receipt is crunched up, you might get pin or barrel distortions, which is very common in photography. You might get blur, especially if it's indoor and the camera light is not turned on. You need to also factor in that if you're going to be uploading this picture over your Wi-Fi connection, even LTE, the upload speeds are like about 1/10 of the download speeds. So there's a lot of stuff needs to be factored in, and we had to take care of all of that. So, for example, we use custom compression based on the type of connection you have. So if it's 3G versus LTE, if you're on the Wi-Fi, the compression varies. But the compression's got to be at a sweet spot, because you don't want to over-compress the image, because then you start losing quality, and the OCR on the back end is not going to be able to sort of extract all that data. So there's a lot of complexity, and I haven't even started talking about the OCR component yet, right? So that sort of gives you hopefully an idea about the mobile side, right? And then once all of that stuff ends up on the server side, there's still a lot more work that happens before we even hit the OCR. There's actually a great story where I remember when Dmitry showed me once a Canadian receipt. Now, I didn't know it was Canadian. And he's like, all right, Ernest, what is this? Is this which country is this receipt from? And straight away, I'm like, okay, it's Australian. I see GST on it. And Dmitry says, well, it's actually Canadian. Veryfi told me it's Canadian, and here's why. And I looked at it closely, and I'm like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. In Canada, there is GST as well, like Australia. So this is, when I mentioned earlier, a lot of that intelligence, that's where machine models really help out. And so you need to start thinking about, when I talk about intelligence, you need to start thinking about machine intelligence, building up machine models that learn from the data that you push into it. Now, if a product cannot achieve accurate real-time data extraction up front, then forget any sort of machine work or even categorization. Because without accurate data, you can't do any categorization. You can't do any sort of intelligence around it. So what you need to aim for is to solve for data, right? And that's what we did up front. We solved for data, and the rest was easy. Hello, Veryfi.
Got it. That sounds like a tremendous amount of complexity in order to make something that's dead simple for the end user.
Yeah.
Dmitry, can you maybe show the webinar, folks on the webinar, how easy it is?
Absolutely.
A quick demo.
I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Okay. So in this demo, we're going to see the real-time data extraction, categorization, and automatic matching those receipts and invoices to the banking feed that is provided by Yodlee. So what we're looking at is a team of 5, and me as an admin, I can access to all the data that my users collected. Also, I integrated this company profile with the bank account, and that data comes from Yodlee. And actually connecting credit cards and banking feeds with Yodlee is just a matter of clicking a couple buttons, entering the account information, and done. It populates all these data in my Veryfi account. And let's look at Matt's credit card, what he's been up to. And as we can see, there are certain transactions that still do not have matching documents. So let's wait for Matt to collect those documents and reconcile this credit card. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we're going to switch to Matt's mobile app. So let's say Matt's somewhere on a field, and he's going to collect. And as you can see,
the camera starts picking up the receipt that's laying on a table. And when I tap on the scan button, it automatically crops it, removes all the background, and let's submit it to the server. So what's happening on the server is that what Ernest explained. Our machine models run through all this data, extracting all the data, categorizing this receipt, and machine models were able to classify this as a category of the cost of goods sold, materials, and supplies. And it was also able to figure out what was the credit card that Matt was using to pay for this expense, the total, the date, then it even figured out the location. It's in San Mateo, and as well as tax. All right, so this one was easy. Now, let's imagine that Matt went to a restaurant and had a receipt where he put the handwritten total and handwritten tip. You saw how it was able to find the receipt, crop it, extract all the background, and let's submit this one. So we trained our models to recognize even the handwritten data. And you saw how quick it was. It was under 3 seconds for it to find the place name, the document date, categorize it as a meals and entertainment, found the tip, the total, the payment card that was used. And if you look at this receipt, it's not as easy even for humans to read the vendor name on it. But because of so many data points that exist on this receipt, like address, merchant ID, and some other extra information, we were able to understand and put it into the right vendor. Now, let's get back to the bank feed and check Matt's credit card. Here we go. So the Home Depot receipt has been already matched to the transaction, and it's probably going to take another 1 or 2 seconds for Umami Burger receipt that we just scanned to be matched to the transaction as well. While it's still doing it, let's switch to the timesheet product that Ernest described previously. We can see that Matt is also clocked in on the Yodlee project dining area renovation. And if we click on a team location, we can see that, yes, Matt is at Yodlee office. And we can zoom out and see it. Matt is working on that location. And let's quickly switch to the Timesheets app. And we can see that my Timesheets application automatically clocked me in as soon as I arrived to the Yodlee office. And as soon as I leave it, the geofence will notify my application to clock out, and it will address the issue of inaccurate timesheets. And also the admin is always aware where the team is working at. All right, that was the demo.
And that is very sweet. And obviously I appreciate the integration with Yodlee's award-winning APIs. That is awesome. Ernest, when we started working together and you came to the incubator, you were not wholly focused on construction. You were a generalized bookkeeping app.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you picked construction as your beachhead market and kind of the traction you've gotten in that market.
Yeah. No, that's true. When we launched, we were a jack of all trades. We weren't really focused on any vertical. And that was sort of, I guess, one of our learnings over time. But when we joined the Yodlee incubator, it was actually thanks to you and your team, Jeff. Being able to attend the Yodlee incubator, it gave us time to think deeply about our business. Now, you might think that you engage in deep business thinking whilst running a startup on a day-to-day basis, but in fact, you're actually not really engaged in deep business thinking. You're constantly bombarded by a never-ending list of responsibilities, product and engineering challenges, and a battle between what's important and what's urgent. So the Yodlee incubator gave us the opportunity to think about our business, our customers, and get advice from the right professionals. And that's when we noticed a spike in construction firms, especially specialty trades. So that's like subcontractors, remodelers, using our software to eliminate the piles of paperwork which they accrue on a weekly basis. Now, we have a case study on Veryfi.com, Mahogany Builders case study, and you can actually see a picture of one of our customers based out of Chicago. They're in a specialty trade business. And what you're going to see on the website is on the left is a pile of receipts on a big table. And that's the pile of receipts that the team would bring in every week from the field. Now, every pile is a project, and someone basically had to go through all of that, sort it all out, do all the data entry into their own system, be able to assign projects, job codes, who worked on what project, and then store it someplace perpetually, right? Because job costing reports are really, really important in construction, and also for bookkeeping purposes. So yeah, check that out. It's a really cool before and after shot to really show you where Veryfi adds a lot of value in construction. Now, once we begin to focus on construction, we began to notice how big of a problem T&M, which is time and material tracking, and the lack of automation is in construction. Now, just to share some data points with you, so construction market is simply massive. In the US, it's like $1.7 trillion. Globally, it's about $13 trillion. Now, I said trillion, not billion, right? You hear a lot of the times people talk about billions. This is trillion, huge. Yet, it's the second least digitized industry in the US, with around 70% of the workforce in the field. And it accounts for about 10% of the US GDP. So, huge productivity gains can be achieved by using the right automation software on the right platform. So mobile, for example, right? Because the only way you can empower that 70% of the workforce is through mobile products and mobile software. Now, look, let's face it, no one likes to do any sort of data entry, right? And so as a construction worker, you have a choice. After you finish working in the field, you either go home and spend time and have dinner with your family, or you catch up on data entry back in the office to log your time worked on projects, job codes, spend, and so forth. All right? Now, we know what people do. And let's just leave all of that data entry and reporting to Veryfi software, because it's already done when you snap a photo or arrive at a job site. So that's essentially what we're now doing with construction. Hopefully that explains nicely our move to construction.
It does. And can you talk a little bit about traction in that industry? I'm sure you don't release a number of customers, but can you talk about growth?
Growth as in?
Number of customers, users.
Yeah.
Keeping closely held right now?
Yeah, we're still a private company, and it's really early. But construction is the vertical that we're heavily focused in at the moment. So most of our customers are in construction now. So we work with them on a daily basis, and we also work with bookkeepers and accountants because they also work with construction companies.
Cool. So other than the time to think and see construction as a potential market, what else did you get out of your time in the incubator?
Yeah. So apart from the construction vertical focus, the perks. Oh, I love the perks. So we got access to the Yodlee Bank Speed API for 12 months for free. Love it. And we also got access to Yodlee Engineering to help us with a lot of that, migration and setting things up. So it really eased up. It removed a lot of the technical burden on our side by having the right people around us. And then I would say the other bit that we got out of the Yodlee incubator is camaraderie. So running a startup is very lonely actually. And so the Yodlee social events gave us time to connect with other founders, share some of the common pain points, realize that we're not the only ones in this. And some of these founders now are friends, so we made new friends. So that was really nice. And building a network is one of the most important activities you can get engaged in, and Silicon Valley is sort of the right place to do that as well.
Okay, cool. So thank you for that. The incubator is awesome. But let's talk about Yodlee. Like the incubator is great, but you wouldn't have chosen it if you weren't interested in using the Yodlee products.
Yeah.
So tell us why Yodlee's APIs were the choice for you.
Who wouldn't, Jeff? I mean, Yodlee, come on, APIs are awesome. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty bits and pieces. So getting data from banks is really, really hard, right? And I'm speaking from experience here. So initially, we used an alternative provider before Yodlee. We also looked at doing some of this ourselves. And I can tell you what, it's an experience in itself, and I think Yodlee does the best job at getting that data. Now, just to give you a bit of a sort of experience that we had with a previous provider, so that was an adventure. It was riddled with a lot of customer complaints, unstable bank connections, and we had so many outstanding tickets with that previous provider that when we left after using them for like 6-7 months, we still had tickets outstanding from day one, right? Now, you can imagine what this is doing to our customers. Customers don't care who your backend provider is. That's my job to care. They only care that the service they are paying for, which is Veryfi, works, especially a financial product. I mean, this isn't a social network, where you can be proud about breaking things in order to move fast. It doesn't work that way. So, after a while, we decided to look elsewhere, and we found Yodlee. And I guess here we are. So moving across to Yodlee was like a breath of fresh air. So I'm very happy that we did that.
So even when your vendor's not living up to expectations, switching vendors is always fraught. It takes engineering cycles. Yeah. It's something that any startup really needs to think through. What risks did you consider when making that decision?
Yeah. Probably say migration. The user experience doesn't really change that much. There's obviously little changes, but it's not a dramatic change. But where and how we fetch data does. So, but I was pretty confident, that as a team of engineers at Veryfi, we could climb mountains. And it ended up being, a walk in the park. And I think a lot of that also was because of the support we got from Yodlee engineering and operations. They prioritized us, and we're practically available 24/7. So that really reduced. It's actually considerably reduced the risk of migration for us.
Excellent. And had you not chosen Yodlee, what do you think you would have done?
Oh wow. Wow. There aren't that many reputable bank data aggregators out there. After our first experience with the other provider, it was Yodlee or going back to CSV file bank data uploads. So I'm pretty happy that that everything worked out really well with Yodlee.
Excellent. And you've been up and running on Yodlee for 12-ish months now. How's it worked out? What benefits have you seen?
Yeah. Oh, okay. You're going to love this one, Jeff. So one, customer retention. For those relying on our bank feeds, it went up. Right? It went through the roof, and I'll talk about the numbers in a second. And the number of customer complaints significantly reduced. I'm sure, like any other founder out there, we don't like customer complaints because that means something is wrong. So that was a good, good thing that all of our customer complaints dropped. And then, the fact that, this customer support was so responsive and would always provide us updates on any reported issue was like day and night, right? When we compared the previous provider, we waited like 6 to 7 months for one ticket. Here, we're getting responses like that. It was phenomenal. Now, in terms of actual stats, so I ran some of the numbers, and we've seen a 9-fold increase in connections after switching over to Yodlee. Now, what this also tells me is that more of our customers can now connect their bank feeds in Veryfi and take advantage of all of Veryfi's bookkeeping reconciliation. I mean, to me, that's a win-win-win in every direction you look at.
Awesome. Well, let's turn away a little bit from the Yodlee commercial and give a startup lesson. I'm guessing that there are a bunch of startup founders and people thinking about startups on this webinar right now. You're now on your third startup, Ernest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Maybe you can talk about a surprising challenge you faced here at Veryfi and how you've dealt with it.
Oh, wow. I'll probably be, Good question. Okay. I'm going to have two stories that will all make sense when I finish them. So, I've been in Silicon Valley for about 10 years. Yes, this is my third startup. Second one's actually still running, the health tech. But so in that 10 years, there's actually two stories that I really love. Things that have really made an impact on how I think and process, being involved in a startup, because it is pretty chaotic. So circa 2009, when I first arrived in Silicon Valley, pretty much fresh, I was sort of ignorant of what software is capable of doing. I came from Australia. I think Australia wasn't back then that tech savvy. So coming to Silicon Valley was a bit of a change for me. And I remember being at Googleplex for one of the Google developer conferences, and I met a tall guy. Okay, let's just say, and I'll tell you his name now. His name is Jan Koum. Some of you might know who he is, but that's basically one of the founders of WhatsApp. But I did not know who he was back then because he was also just starting out off his company. And so he showed me an app where I no longer had to pay 20 cents per SMS. Now remember, this is 2009. I had my first smartphone. I think it was iPhone 3. I was pretty happy with that. Now, I didn't think much of Jan's app at the time, and I said to him, why would I need an app when SMS is like dirt cheap? Because 20 cents, let's face it, that's like pocket change, right, to be able to communicate with anyone in the world. Now, fast forward 4 years later, my wife's telling me about this hot new app that she's communicating with her sister in Australia, and I asked her, like, what's it called? Because, back then I sort of got a bit more educated about what products or software can do and how it can disrupt the world. And so I had more respect for mobile and applications and so forth. And she said, WhatsApp. I nearly fell off my seat. Now, we know how that ended up for WhatsApp. Facebook acquired them, that 50-team company, for $20 billion. So that was an interesting contrast for me. Now, one more story. In 2010, so after the Jan experience, I attended my first ever Y Combinator startup school. That was on a Saturday. At the end of all the presentations, every company that presented invited the audience to their office for the following day, which was Sunday. And one of those companies that presented was Airbnb. So Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb. Now, this is the only ever time that Y Combinator did that, where the next day they invited all the people that attended startup school to the companies. And so anyway, I chose one company to go to, which is Airbnb, because I love the whole idea of property investing and so forth. So I really connected with that. Now the next day I drove to SF from Mountain View to that one company, and I got lost getting to SF. Remember I was only there in the US for 12 months. So I finally found a place. I think it was in Hayes Valley, which is off of Van Ness. I remember there was like a rundown place, a garage, and a metal door with a letter-sized page that had scribbled on it Airbnb. And I was like, yes, found it. Okay, cool. I go inside. There's about 10 employees. Everyone's working in the garage. Brian Chesky treated me to mini cupcakes, and we spoke for nearly an hour. So today, Airbnb's got like 3,000 employees, $2.6 billion in revenue. I don't know, it's about valuation $30 billion. It's an inspiration. So being able to see, how these early stage companies, which later became, unicorns, big billion-dollar companies, is interesting, and there's a lot of reflection that came out of it. So these two stories that I just talked about, they're sort of my daily reminders. Because entrepreneurial life is like a sine wave of ups and downs, multiple times sometimes in one day. And so the moral of the story is never, ever lose sight of your vision, no matter how contrarian it is. You will have people question your views, right? Just like I questioned 20 cents SMS. Many will not even understand it, right? Such is the nature of building something unique or even new, something disruptive. At first, it looks really weird, but with time, it could become something very, very big. Now, most things take time. Look at Airbnb. I mean, these stories are from like over 10 years ago, or around 10 years ago. There is no overnight success. So believe in yourself and never ever give up. Rome was not built overnight.
Awesome. That is a great inspiration to startup founders everywhere, and probably a great way to end this section of the webinar. And we've probably got some questions, don't we?
We do. Thank you, Jeff, Ernest. That was fantastic. Really inspiring conversation. We did learn a lot about certainly the Envestnet Yodlee Incubator Program, commercials and all, and how the API has certainly helped Veryfi deliver on its promise to its customers, and indeed grow, launch, and ideally help you scale for future success and current success. We do have a few questions. There is a question regarding, is money in available, or for deposits, for example, if you receive payments from a client, is that captured through your app?
Yeah, of course. Do you want to mention that, Dmitry?
Sure. Yeah. So we do capture that information. Like if somebody writes you a check, you can mark it as money in. If somebody pays you for your invoice, you can mark it as money in. The intelligence of recognizing money in is only built for checks written, because checks could be both spending money or coming in money. So it requires some time to understand your business and where it's you writing check or you are receiving the check. So yes, that's coming. And the integration with other accounting platforms for money in, it's what's on our radar. And we already started building these integrations for QuickBooks, and the others will come shortly after.
Like Xero or Wave apps, things like that?
Exactly.
Well, you just led right into a second question, which was, are we integrating with other capabilities and accounting tools? So what about receipt matching? Can that be done on the mobile app or on the desktop?
On the desktop, yes. On the mobile, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, with regard to receipt management, it seemed really easy and straightforward. In fact, the demo served up quite well. We got a lot of great comments about very cool stuff from some of the viewers. What I wanted to know, and another question, what about invoices? In the construction industry, certainly a lot is done through invoicing, accounts receivable. How is that currently handled?
Mm-hmm.
So we have a lot of ways to get data into Veryfi. So we try to make it as easy as possible for clients to get the data into Veryfi. So that's why we provide ability to scan. If it's a printed invoice or it's a printed receipt, you can scan it with a mobile app. If it's emailed invoice, everybody in Veryfi gets their unique Veryfi email address. They can just simply forward that email to their email address, and the data will be extracted in the same manner within seconds. If you have any PDFs, you can just drag and drop them to the website. They're going to be processed real time. So there's no wait. You don't have to wait. If you have a bunch of invoices from historical data, let's say from last year, you can just connect to your cloud account, manager, the cloud storage, like Google Drive, Dropbox. You can connect that to Veryfi, drop all those files there, and Veryfi will pick them up, process, and they all will be available in your Veryfi inbox, pretty much.
And I just want to add something else to it. One of our API customers who also took advantage of our custom camera component, where that camera that you saw Dmitry do a demo with, you can integrate that into your apps. And so this is it's a company, I don't want to name the company, but it's a modern bank. And so what they did is they used our real-time capabilities and all the software that we have for extracting all the data from invoices, so starting for payables, right? So stuff needs to be paid. And then integrated it into their app. So essentially, take a picture of the invoice that needs to be paid, then the software extracts it straight away, then pre-populates the field, and then you press the next button and you pay it, right? So anyone can actually do that today, right? If you've got an app that handles any sort of payments, you can integrate our technology and be able to do real-time payments for your mobile. We're still sort of debating whether we should launch something like that. There's obviously so many places that we could go, but we've got the capabilities to do it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about your decision to work with Envestnet Yodlee. Obviously, we're delighted with that. How was security, risk, privacy? What are the considerations and concerns that you were looking at when, with regard to those factors?
You mean like in general?
Yeah, in general.
When it comes to data privacy? Yeah. Okay. So I didn't talk too much about it, but my first first startup in the US, venture-backed startup in the US was a health tech company. We connected hospitals and ambulances using software for logistics and communication. And so I had to deal with a lot of HIPAA compliance because our clients are Sada Health, Kaiser Permanente, which replaced all of that old school Lotus technology with our technology for logistics. So I learned quite a lot about HIPAA compliance. And one thing that we wanted to do, as I mentioned earlier, is that we wanted to make sure that we're data privacy first company as well. So we take care of all of that. We want to make sure that when you're going to store data with us for 7 or more years, that you feel safe, that no one else is looking at it except for yourself and maybe your accountant or maybe your team with limited controls. So we needed to make sure that our company is both HIPAA compliant and GDPR compliant and now CCPA compliant, and we are. So we take security and data privacy very, very seriously. Right. And I think it's important, and I'm sure you're already seeing, a lot of companies, again, no names mentioned, but things catch up. So when people hide something or when, they're not storing, like, even basics like passwords in plain text, like, these things over time do bubble up. So it's important to do them up front. Security and data privacy should not be an afterthought. It should be something embedded into the culture of the company.
Great. Now, I know we're coming up on time here, and I appreciate everyone's patience in staying with us. We did have a question on here, and I know you may not be able to answer it because you're probably likely focused on where you are in the US today. But are there plans for global expansion? Obviously, the construction industry tends to degrade over time in other markets. Certainly, it's done a little bit differently.
Sure.
In places. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so all of our mobile products are live on App Store and Google Play all around the world in all the English-speaking countries.
Okay.
And so we've got about 8% of our customers from Canada today, about 5% are from Australia as well. I'd like to see more Australia, actually, because I'm Australian.
Yes.
Bit of bias here, but hey, why not? But yeah, majority of our customers are US at the moment, but we love working with Canadians and Australians today, and we do, yeah.
Perfect. Well, you know what? I want to thank Ernest and Jeff for setting up, and Dmitry also for setting up this conversation. It's been really enlightening to me, and hopefully to everyone else that's been listening in on this. This does conclude today's webinar. As I mentioned earlier, everyone on the line and for those who missed it will receive an email in the next few days with access to an on-demand version. If you'd like to get additional information or schedule a meeting with Jeff to talk about the incubator, or perhaps we can pass the lead off to you maybe for a construction opportunity, please respond to this to your email that you receive, and we'll direct your communications accordingly. Once again, I want to thank everyone who joined us today, and please enjoy the rest of your day.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.